I saw this tweet on Twitter by Victoria Smith, who is a gender critical activist and writer, journalist, I don't know, someone who writes things and is relevant in the British media world somehow and is gender critical. And it's a big claim to say the most delusional and least self-aware tweet I've seen in my life, because Twitter is full of delusional, non-self-aware people. And even within the gender critical movement, like, you're competing with J.K. Rowling and all these people who just are delusional and not self-aware at all. But I don't know, something about this just made me want to scream. She says, no one who calls feminists transphobes. So here, when she says feminists, she's talking about herself, but she's just talking about the gender critical movement, who aren't feminists. It's like a propaganda attempt. Anyway, no one who calls feminists transphobes has ever had a conversation with us about what we believe. It's been years, and they're yet to respond to it at all. It feels kind of embarrassing that we ever expected more. Victoria, what the fuck are you talking about? What are you on about? There's just absolutely unreal. Every single trans person who has ever made an account on the internet has been forced to have a conversation with gender critical people about what they believe. I've done it like literally thousands of times. The only reason that anyone is watching this YouTube channel at all is because I spent like 10 years of my life talking to gender critical people every single day, understanding what they're saying and like addressing the points they make, coming up with arguments they don't have responses to. We know deeply what you stand for. And also, the gender critical movement is platformed to an insane degree in the UK. From left to right, the full media world constantly puts gender critical arguments front and center. Even in stories about trans rights, they still include all these gender critical talking points, sometimes only include gender critical talking points. They constantly hear from gender critical people giving their exact views word for word. Then they won't include trans people's views word for word. They'll just be summarized in gender critical language. We literally just had the Supreme Court ruling, which only featured cis people and gender critical people in the courtroom. And they made a decision where they put gender critical like ideology into fucking law, like changed the actual law, used a load of gender critical talking points. What are you talking about? It's just unbelievable. Nobody's had a conversation with us to see what you believe. You guys are going on podcasts all the time and saying things like, we need to reduce the number of trans people because we're a huge problem to a sane world. You write books saying the problem of transsexualism, the problem of transsexualism would be best addressed by morally mandating it out of existence. We know exactly what you stand for. I know your full argument line. I've written articles about it. I know hundreds of other trans people who have written articles about it. But what makes this so delusional and like not self-aware is this is like a complete 180 flip of reality, because gender criticals have no idea what trans people are saying. They have no idea about any of our arguments. You see them making all these claims about what gender ideology is, and you're like, I don't know anyone who says they believe in gender ideology. And when you're summarizing gender ideology to me, like a classic gender critical position will be, oh, trans people think that just because a boy wants to wear a dress that he must be a girl. Like, I've genuinely never met a single person who believes that. That's purely a construction in the gender critical world. Like, the biggest straw man of all time, which is their main opponent. I don't think anyone from the gender critical movement has really had a conversation where they've attempted to listen and counter our points with a trans person. Like, I know a conversation is always between at least two people. So when I've had conversations with gender criticals, necessarily they've had a conversation with me. But what I mean is, gender criticals have all the power in this situation. They are trying to take away our human rights. The discussion is about our human rights, our future, our healthcare. None of it affects them at all. So if I say gender critical ideology is false because of the following things, they don't need to address that. It doesn't affect them. Who cares? It doesn't matter whether they're wrong or right, because they have politicians in power and they have the media and they have unlimited money. Whereas we have to respond to this stuff because they're saying things like, we need to ban trans people from the toilets at work, and here are the reasons why. And you're like, okay, you've given 3 reasons. They're all factually false, internally inconsistent, and morally wrong. And here are the reasons why they think. You naturally are forced to engage with these people. But we just fell off. You're naturally forced to engage with these people because they are attacking your future and your freedom. So we know, of course, we know what they have to say, and they don't need to hear what we're saying. I mean, in order to be gender critical, you have to be ignorant about trans people and unempathetic and uninterested in having a conversation. Otherwise, you would talk to us and realize that we're normal people and we do actually deserve human rights, and then you're not gender critical anymore. So, just insane. How can you get into this position where you have, like, she writes in the media all the time. Like an example, she's writing here in Unheard, some British magazine that people read. She herself writes her own views down. She could have had conversations. Obviously, she's blocked me on Twitter. I haven't blocked her because she doesn't want to have a conversation with trans people. How can you be in this position where you have, like, as a movement, the entire media, some of the most famous people on earth, like Elon Musk, Donald Trump, J.K. Rowling, Keir Starmer, like people leading actual countries? You have the entire political establishment, the power center of it, the entire media, all the money, and still you feel like people aren't listening to you. The problem is, the real reason that you feel like that is because when you say what you actually want, however you describe it, however coded or not coded, what you want, you express what you want, people will be like, oh, that sounds bad. Like, that sounds immoral. And you'll be like, no, you don't understand it. We want to reduce the number of trans people because they're a huge problem to a sane world. And you're like, well, that sounds like eugenics or a genocide or something. And they're like, no, I'll sue you if you say that. What we really mean is, that's why you feel like you're not understood. That's why you feel like people aren't listening, because people come at you and they say the gender critical movement is a hate movement, which is based upon science denial and irrational prejudice, and it seeks to remove human rights from a vulnerable minority. You'd be like, I don't identify with that description. All I want to do is, and then you just describe that exact same thing back to someone. Like, but you don't internally, you don't believe about yourself that you are a hateful, bigoted person who wants to remove a vulnerable minority's human rights, because if you believe that about yourself, then you'd just be openly evil, wouldn't you? Which some gender critical people are, but most of them aren't. Or most of them don't see themselves that way. I can't think of any other explanation other than she is literally delusional, literally has lost grip on reality, where she thinks that trans people are trying to have a conversation with them. I mean, I've probably talked to her at one point, because why would she have blocked me otherwise? Maybe I just disagreed with something she said and she blocked me instantly. Maybe she pre-blocked me. Some of them have. But I've talked with loads of the big name gender criticals, some of them in DMs, some of them for months, some for years. I mean, we're constantly having to discuss with them. What are you fucking talking about? Unbelievable. I just think it's like, yeah, I'm almost speechless of how ridiculous this is as a take. Like, absolutely ridiculous. But I just felt like I had to say something about it, because I was just, what are you on? Yeah, I don't know. The gender critical movement inherently doesn't have a grip on reality, as we will see later on with the upcoming videos. But this just seems a little bit next level to me. What do you think? Do you think I'm overreacting a bit? I don't think so. Another point. I literally had a call-in show where, I mean, it's still running today. You should definitely check it out. The Transatlantic Call-In Show, where you, a gender critical person, can call in and talk to trans people and explain your views, and you're prioritized in the call list. They really want gender critical callers. because that's the whole point of the show. And I did that show for years. A bunch of the people on there have been doing it even longer than me now. Every single week for like 4 years or something. Is there a gender critical call-in show where I can call in and address their arguments? And like confront them with things? No, because they don't need to do that. Absolute clown. Ridiculous person. Ridiculous comment. She should be embarrassed to have ever written this.